The following lesson is linked to Learning Outcome 2, Reading and Viewing. It addresses the assessment standard that requires learners to explain the meaning of a wide range of written, visual, audio, and audiovisual texts. Learners should be able to recognize how selections and omissions in texts can affect meaning. They should also be able to distinguish between fact and opinion and give their own response.
Hi, I'm Nicola Shongwe. Welcome to this lesson on reading between the lines. You've probably heard this expression before. It refers to working out what a person means, not only by their choice of words, but also by their underlying attitude and the way they present the information. There are various ways of working out this meaning or of reading between the lines. In this lesson, we're going to focus on the first way, and that is the writer's choice of facts. Because the focus of this lesson is on choice of facts, or what facts are presented, let's start off by looking at what a fact is. A fact is a statement that is believed to be true and can be proven. By the end of this lesson, you will be able to do the following. Define and identify facts and opinions, and comment on the selection of facts. Let's begin this lesson by looking at a newspaper article. Newspaper articles contain a lot of facts. However, there is no way that they can possibly include all of the facts. Journalists have to make decisions about which facts to include and which ones to leave out. These choices can sometimes distort the article, resulting in a biased picture of the event that is being portrayed. The writer can subtly convey his or her own opinions according to the way the facts are presented. Do you remember what an opinion is? An opinion is a point of view or a judgment of an issue. Sometimes it's not that easy to spot the difference between an opinion and a fact. The writer may choose to give more space to one side of the argument, or put the information that he or she agrees with first. When the portrayal of an event is distorted, we call it bias. What does bias mean? Bias refers to facts that are influenced by opinion. One way of conveying bias is through choice of facts. Whilst all the information reported can be true, the writer may choose to deliberately include only the information that suits his or her purposes. Blind nun held in demo. Baton-wielding policemen rounded up scores of women carrying red roses and singing hymns in Harare and Bulawayo on Friday. One of those arrested in the Valentine's Day protest was an elderly British Dominican nun, Sister Catherine Jackson, who is almost blind and runs a Braille library in Harare. Let's have a look at the first half of this extract and see what facts have been presented. The policemen were carrying batons. The demonstrators were carrying red roses and singing hymns. And the protest occurred in Harare and Bulawayo. Now let's see what facts are presented in the second half of this extract. A nun was arrested. Her name is Sister Catherine Jackson. She is a British Dominican nun. She is almost blind and runs a Braille library in Harare. And the incident took place on Valentine's Day. These are facts because you could easily verify whether or not they are true. For example, you could go to the police station in Harare and verify that Catherine Jackson was arrested. So most of the information that's been included in this article could be proven to be true. Yet some interesting choices have been made. Let's have a look at these choices, and let's begin by looking at the choice of headline and the first paragraph. Although the journalist does not give the exact number of people in the demonstration, he does say that scores of women participated. Now, if so many people participated and were arrested, why has he chosen to write specifically about the blind nun? The idea here is to appeal to people's emotions. When I think of a nun, I think of someone defenseless, like Mother Teresa. Someone who has devoted her life to serving God and the community. I'm sure this is the same sort of mental picture that would come to mind when reading this article. Also, the fact that she is blind makes her seem even more defenseless and less likely to be a threat to police. In fact, the police, who in the very first line are described as baton-wielding, are made out to be complete bullies arresting innocent people. So, do you see how by focusing on one individual, the journalist has chosen someone who was most likely to rouse the emotional support of the reader? Let's have a look at this line again. Baton-wielding policemen rounded up scores of women carrying red roses and singing hymns. We've already talked about the baton-wielding policemen, but now let's look at how they are contrasted with the demonstrators. The police are armed, and by saying that they are wielding their batons, it sounds as if they're actually hitting the demonstrators rather than just carrying their weapons. The demonstrators, however, are portrayed as peace-loving, law-abiding citizens. They are carrying flowers, which are symbolic of peace. Also, they are singing hymns, which implies they are participating in a peaceful demonstration, not some kind of disorganized mob engaged in a riot. It's important to note the choice of words here. Baton-wielding policemen rounded up scores of women. Who or what is normally rounded up? This verb is usually reserved for herds of cattle or other animals. By saying that the policemen rounded up the women, it seems that the demonstrators were being treated like animals, or at least without much dignity. Also, consider the number of women involved. The article says that scores of women were rounded up, but does not give an actual number. Now, how do you think the article would have changed if an actual number had been given? Think about it. If the journalist had said 20 or 35 or 150 people were involved, it might not have seemed as impressive as is suggested by the use of the word scores. Now, I don't know how many people were in the demonstration, but I know that scores means a lot of people. So after reading this article, I would imagine that the demonstration was large. Wow, we've been at this a long time and have only looked at 2 sentences. Do you see what reading between the lines involves? There are many things to consider. Let's move on and look at the next sentence from our example and see what we can read into it. First of all, let's consider the date. The journalist could just as easily have said Friday's protest or the 14th of February's protest. But by calling it the Valentine's Day protest, it immediately gets the reader thinking. Somehow, the fact that the events took place on Valentine's Day, supposedly a day to celebrate love, makes it seem as if the protesters were treated even more badly. Next, let's take a look at which protester the journalist has chosen to focus on. An elderly British Dominican nun, Sister Catherine Jackson, who is almost blind and runs a Braille library in Harare. We've already talked about the associations that the word nun has, but now a name and some details have been added to those associations. By giving a name and some background information about one participant, Catherine Jackson, the journalist is encouraging the reader to develop sympathy for those who were involved. Suddenly, there are no longer nameless, faceless demonstrators, but one of them sounds as if she could be a candidate for sainthood. Again, the journalist has been selective in the choice of facts presented. By saying that she is a nun, we know that she is a deeply religious woman. The fact that she is almost blind makes us feel as if the police should be protecting her rather than rounding her up and wielding their batons at her. The fact that she runs a Braille library is not really significant to this story. Yet the information is included because it emphasizes that she is a generous spirit who helps those less fortunate than herself. Most people would agree that this is the role the police should be fulfilling in the communities. Now let's recap the main concept of this lesson. Journalists have a lot of facts at their disposal. Sometimes the facts presented are biased and can convey the writer's opinion just as effectively as if he had explicitly stated which side he is on. After looking at just a headline and 2 sentences of this article and reading between the lines, I'm sure you could easily work out which side the journalist supports, that he supports the demonstrators and thinks that they have been badly treated by the police. Now let's move on to our task for today. We've looked very closely at part of an article and seen how the choice of facts and words convey the bias of the writer. Rewrite this short extract. However, this time, distort the presentation of facts so that it is biased in favor of the police and places the demonstrators in a bad light. I'm sure you will agree what a valuable skill reading between the lines is. Don't take anything as factual just because it appears in a book or a newspaper. If you don't read between the lines, you may be conned into thinking someone's opinion is fact. Well, that's the end of today's lesson. See you next time.